So, dear students, so this is the continuation part of my solid state chapter. So, in previous class, we had discussion on characteristics of the solids, two different types of solids on the basis of arrangement of constituent particles. We have classified solids into two types, crystalline solids and amorphous solids. We also had discussion on isotropic nature of the solids, in which there is an important question called why crystalline solids are anisotropic in nature. Already I have answered in my previous session. So today let us have discussion on classification of crystalline solids. So once again, on the basis of nature of intermolecular forces operating between different particles present in solid, crystalline solids are mainly classified into four types. So crystalline solids are on the basis of nature of intermolecular forces, they are classified into four types. Mainly they are molecular solids, then we have ionic solids, third one is metallic solids, lastly covalent or network like solids, So based on nature of intermolecular forces, now we are going to classify these solids, molecular solids, ionic solids, metallic solids and covalent solids. Okay, so let us have a individual discussion on these different types of crystalline solids. Okay, so now in order to study clearly, in order to study properly, so let's have a chart which consists of all these types with their complete discussion. Yes, let's have our discussion on classification of solids in detail. So I have already told you there are four types. The first type is molecular solids. So the name itself indicating, so molecular means molecular solids. So in molecular solids, the constituent particles are molecules. What about the bonding forces are the binding forces? In other words, what type of forces are present between our molecules in case of molecular solids, that we have to see. So generally in molecular solids, van der Waals forces are present. Van der Waals forces. So before going to examples, see, in a first PUC we have learned that there are different types of van der Waals forces are present. So van der Waals forces are nothing but weak attractive forces are called van der Waals force. So once again, van der Waals forces are having different types, like there are non-polar van der Waals forces we have, weak dispersion forces we have, they are also known as London forces, dipole forces are also there, even hydrogen bonding is also there. So once again, depending upon different types of van der Waals forces, so once again our molecular solids are again classified into three different types based on the nature of interaction. Suppose if there is a weak dispersion force or London force is present in the molecular solid between the different molecules of the solid, then such molecular solid is called non-polar molecular solids. If the bonding force is dipole force, bonding force is dipole-dipole interaction, then such type of molecular solids are called polar molecular solids. Again, if there is a hydrogen bonding present between the different molecules of the solid, then it is known as hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So that's why we have again three types of molecular solids. One is non-polar molecular solids, non-polar molecular solids. So in non-polar molecular solids, once again the constituents remain same because it is a type of molecular solids only. So that's why, so in non-polar molecular solids also constituent particles are molecules only. So coming to bonding forces or van der Waals forces, so these forces are London force or dispersion force we may call. Dispersion force, or it is also known as London force. It is a weak attractive force. London force or dispersion force is present. Coming to the example of some non-polar molecular solids, when you consider solid argon, helium, iodine, CCl4. Interesting example is solid ice. We know what is solid ice, that is not solid ice, it is dry ice. Dry ice, that is nothing but solid CO2. So these are some examples. These are some examples of non-polar molecular solids. If you remember, our iodine I2 molecule, CCl4 molecule, argon, these are all non-polar molecules, hence their solids are considered as non-polar molecular solids. Coming to their nature, so they are soft in nature. When we talk of electrical conductivity, they are insulators. It means there is no passage of electrical current in these solids because we have molecules here. So when we talk of melting point, it is low, or we can say it is very low. So another type of molecular solid is polar molecular solids. Polar molecular solids. In polar molecular solids, once again the constituent particles are molecules only. So constituent particles are molecules. Now coming to the force, see, we are having polar molecules, so that's why the force is dipole-dipole force or dipole-dipole interaction we can say. Dipole-dipole force or dipole-dipole interaction will be there. Dipole-dipole force is present. So here molecules should be polar in nature. The molecules should be polar. Polar molecule like HCl, SO2, solid ammonia. So these are some polar molecules or polar molecular solids in which dipole-dipole forces are present, hence they comes under polar molecular solids. When we talk of their physical nature, they are also soft, they are also insulators, even their melting points are low. Okay, so coming to the third type, hydrogen bonded molecular solids. Hydrogen bonded molecular solids, once again the constituent particles are molecules only. So coming to the force, the bonding force is nothing but hydrogen bonding. So for hydrogen bonding, the best example is ice, which is made up of water. So ice is having large number of hydrogen bonding, hence it is the example. when we talk of their physical nature, it is hard in nature, but it is insulator, okay. So its melting point is also low. So this is about molecular solids and the different types of molecular solids, okay. So in non-polar molecular solids, dispersion or London forces are present. These are the weak van der Waals forces. So again in polar molecular solids, dipole forces are present. See this HCl, the electronegativity of Cl minus is more, H is less, hence it is a polar molecule. In polar molecule, dipole forces are present. In case of hydrogen bonded molecular solids, so simple one, the name itself indicating there is a hydrogen bonding. The best example is our water, which is having hydrogen bonds. So next, so this is about our first type, molecular solids. So coming to the second type is ionic solids. The second one is ionic solid. Ionic solids. So for ionic solids, the name itself indicating the constituent particles are ions. Constituent particles are ions. So different charged ions will be there. For example, bonding forces are the bonding force present between oppositely charged ion is known as electrostatic force. Electrostatic force. Electrostatic force of attraction, which is also known as Coulombic attraction. So now when we consider ionic solids, we can have the example of NaCl, we can have KCl, even MgO, zinc. So these are some example of ZnS, zinc sulfide. So these are some example for ionic solids. When we talk of their physical nature, they are hard and even brittle. Hard means you already know, brittle means, so these can be easily broken. When we talk of electrical conductivity, see in ionic solids, once again ions are having fixed position in solid state. So that's why in case of solid state, they may not conduct electricity. Yeah, surely they are not going to conduct in solid state because ions are not free to move. When you take aqueous solution or molten state of these ionic solids, so these start conducting. So what happens means there is a movement of free ions. So there will be movement of free ions. So I can write they are insulators. They are insulators in solid state. They are insulators in solid state. They conduct electricity in molten state or in aqueous solution. In aqueous solution or in molten state, they are going to conduct. What is the reason means? The reason is because in molten state or in aqueous solution, ions are free to move. The ions are free to move, hence they can conduct. So when we talk of melting point, it is high. The melting point is high. So coming to the next type, metallic solids. Third type, metallic solids. metallic solids. See what happens. In case of molecular solids, I have written molecules as constituent particles. In case of ionic solids, I have written ions are constituent particles. Soon after looking into metallic solid, you should not write the constituent particles as metals. So what actually happens in metals is, so when we consider a metallic sheet, so in metals what happens, so there is a presence of positive charged ions like this. The arrangement of ions in a metal, it is like this. So a metal sheet always consists of large number of positive ions like this, and their electrons, they are freely moving everywhere. So these positive ions, they are also known as kernels. Okay, so now what we say, so this arrangement is present in case of metals. So that's why the constituent particles are positive charged ions and a sea of free electrons. So everywhere free electrons are present. So it is also known as electron C model, because everywhere electrons are present. It looks like positive ions, they are floating over a sea of electrons. Positive charged ions, they are floating over a sea of electrons. So that's why it is also known as electron C model. So now what are the constituents of metals? Positively charged ions and freely moving or delocalized electrons, we can say. So now constituent particles are positive charged ions and freely moving electrons. In the sea of, we have to write small correction, positive charged ions in the sea of delocalized electrons. So coming to the bonding forces, so the attraction between these positive charged ions and freely moving are the sea of delocalized electrons. So the attraction itself is called metallic bond, hence the bonding is metallic bond. So coming to examples, so metals like you can consider copper, zinc, silver, gold, iron, Fe, etc. Okay, coming to physical nature, so once again these are also hard in nature, but they are malleable and ductile. Means though metals are hard in nature, they can be hammered into thin sheets or thin wires. Okay, when we talk of electrical conductivity, they are good conductors, as because of the presence of free electrons, they are good conductors of electricity. When we talk of their melting point, it is fairly high. Compared to ionic solid, it is somewhat high. So next one is the last one, covalent or network like solids. So coming to the fourth type, covalent or network like solid. So the fourth type is covalent or network like solids. So now the constituents are atoms. Constituents are atoms. So what is the bonding force means? Once again, it is a covalent bonding. Covalent bond or covalent bonding is the attractive force. So coming to the examples. So some good examples are quartz SiO2, silicon carbide SiC, aluminium nitride AlN, carbon in the form of graphite and diamond. Graphite, carbon in the form of diamond. So as soon as by looking these examples, you may have a knowledge of the structure of graphite and diamond what we have studied in our first PUC. So there we have cleared that this diamond is a bad conductor of electricity, whereas graphite is good conductor. It is because of sp2 hybridization and presence of one free electron in the graphite, whereas there are no free electrons. So when we talk of the physical nature, so once again covalent solids are, so they are also hard. They are also hard. So come to electrical conductivity, they are insulators. Insulators except graphite, because graphite is a good conductor of electricity. Graphite. So coming to melting point, their melting point is very high. Melting points are very high. We know that the melting point of this diamond is about 2500 Kelvin something. So that's why we say these covalent solids, they are having a very high melting point. So this is about a brief classification of our crystalline solids. Okay. So next let us have discussion on crystal lattice and unit cell. So next discussion is on crystal lattice or space lattice. So here is the diagram of crystal lattice or space lattice. See, there are certain points. Okay. So these points are nothing but constituent particles. In other words, I have arranged these points in a regular three-dimensional geometry. So this crystal lattice is nothing but a regular three-dimensional arrangement of points in space. A regular three-dimensional arrangement of points in space is called crystal lattice or space lattice. So let's have the definition. A regular three-dimensional arrangements of points in space is called crystal lattice, also known as space lattice. So there are 14 possible crystal lattices are there. There are 14 possible crystal lattices, three-dimensional lattices are present. They are also known as Bravais lattices. There are 14 possible lattices are present. They are known as Bravais lattices. There are 14 possible lattices are there. They are called Bravais lattices. Bravais lattices. So now let us see what is the characteristic of a lattice, characteristic of a crystal lattice. So in order to define this crystal lattice, so what are the different things involved in our crystal lattice? See the characteristics. Characteristics of a crystal lattice. Each point, see these are the points, each point in the crystal lattice is called as lattice point, or it is also known as lattice site. So each point can be called as lattice point, or it is also known as lattice site. So each point in crystal lattice, each point in crystal lattice is a lattice point. It is known as lattice point or lattice site. So this is the general term what we are defining to these points. So each point is called lattice point or lattice site. Actually what these lattice point represent, we already know that one. These points are nothing but our constituent particles. So that's why in the second characteristic is each lattice point or lattice site represent a constituent particle. So a constituent particle in the sense these points may be atoms or ions or molecules depending upon the type of solid present. So the second one is each lattice point represent a constituent particle. So constituent particle in the sense these may be atoms or molecules, or this may be ions. Okay, so now each point here is a lattice point, and each lattice point can be a constituent particle, means that may be atom or ion or molecules. If you observe this crystal lattice properly, you will find that this geometry is as if I have arranged some 8 small boxes. This geometry is like as if I have arranged some 8 smaller boxes in a systematic way. Okay, so a small box which is looking here, what you can see here is called as, so this small box is called as unit cell. It is called as unit cell. So our next discussion is on next what is unit cell. In order to define what is unit cell, you must have a knowledge of what is crystal lattice first, because our unit cell is the portion of, or it is the smallest portion of our crystal lattice. Okay, next coming to unit cell. This one is an important concept, because in this chapter many times we will come across this unit cells. Okay, so now what is a unit cell? If you observe here, it is the smallest portion of crystal lattice. Okay, so here what you can see, a small box you can consider, so this is called a unit cell. Observe properly, if I repeat this box or unit cell in different directions, I mean if I arrange this unit cell in different directions, then it generate entire crystal lattice. Then it generate entire crystal lattice. So now how can I define this unit cell means? It is the smallest portion of crystal lattice, which when repeated in different directions, when it is arranged in the different directions, it generate entire crystal lattice. So a unit cell is the smallest portion of crystal lattice. Smallest portion of crystal lattice which when repeated in different directions, generate entire lattice or entire crystal lattice. It means to say that it is the smallest portion of our crystal lattice. When I write a single unit cell, it looks like this. So it is a three-dimensional diagram. Okay. So observe properly the unit cell. Okay. So once again, in order to understand what is this unit cell, let us consider its characters. So in unit cell, we have edges. See here. Edges. How many edges are there? There are totally 12 edges will be there. So we are considering their edge length. So say all the edge lengths are same in this because it is a cubic type of unit cell. Okay. So here say this from here to here, this edge length is, say it is A, it is B, and this edge length is C. So I have considered along the different directions X, Y and Z. A unit cell is characterized by its edges, three edges. A unit cell is characterized by its three edges A, B and C. These edge lengths they may be mutually perpendicular or they may not. Sometimes what happens, these edge lengths, they are mutually perpendicular, sometimes they may not be perpendicular to each other. So the first character is its dimensions along edges. Its dimensions along edges. A, which are represented by small ABC, A, B and C. These may or may not be mutually perpendicular. May or may not be mutually perpendicular. So the next one is its angle between edge length. The angles between edges. Angle between the edges, they are known as alpha, beta and gamma. The angle between the edges A and B is gamma. And the angle between B and C is, it is alpha, and the angle between A and C is, it is beta. Okay, so its angles between the three edges: angle alpha between B and C, beta between A and C, and gamma between A and B. So the second character is its angles between edges. Axial angle also, it is also called as axial angles. Angles between edges. Angles between edges. Alpha between B and C, beta between A and C, and gamma between A and B. So totally I mean to say is each unit cell is characterized by 6 parameters. So what are those? Its edges means edge length A, B, C, and axial angles alpha, beta, and gamma. So each unit cell has 6 parameters. So summary of these 2 points: each unit cell has 6 parameters. Each unit cell has 6 parameters. What are these parameters? Parameters are 3 edge lengths. 3 edge lengths, A, B, and C, and 3 axial angles. 3 axial angles means the angles between the edges is called axial angles. They are represented by alpha, beta, and gamma. So that's why each unit cell is characterized by these 6 parameters. So the next discussion is on types of unit cells. So now mainly there are 2 types of unit cells are there. So first one is primitive unit cell. There are 2 types. First one is primitive unit cell, which is also known as simple cubic unit cell. It is also known as simple cubic unit cell or simply simple cube. Simple cubic unit cell or simple cube. So let us see what is this primitive unit cell or simple cubic unit cell. If a unit cell has particles only at the corners like this, so if there is a unit cell in which the constituent particles are present only at the corners like this, a unit cell in which if the constituent particles are present only at the corners, then it is called simple cube or primitive unit cell. Simple cubic unit cell or primitive unit cell. You have to always remember certain points regarding a simple cube. What are those means? So if you count here, totally how many corners are there? There are 8 corners. Okay, there are 8 corners. If we count the number of edges, how many edges are there? If you count it properly, you will get there are 12 edges are present. 12 edges. If you count the number of faces, see here, left hand face, right hand face, lower face, upper face, 4, front one and back side one. So totally there are 6 faces are present in a simple cubic unit cell. 8 corners are there, 12 edges are there, 6 faces are there. When you consider body center, one body center. So this is a necessary simple information I am going to use in the next definitions. So there are 8 corners in a simple cube. Always whenever you draw a simple unit cell, so it will be having 8 corners, 12 edges and 6 faces. So definitely there will be one body center. So now what is this primitive unit cell means? A unit cell which has a unit cell that contains particles only at the corners. So it means to say that in primitive unit cell or simple cube, we have particles only at the corners. Coming to second type, centered unit cell. So this is a unit cell in which if there is some extra particles are present, say 1 or more particles are present in addition to those present at the corners. So simple cube में 8 corners compulsory होते हैं. In addition to those 8 corners, if additional particles are present, say 1 or more additional particles are present, then such a unit cell is called centered unit cell. A unit cell which contain 1 or more, a unit cell which contain 1 or more particles in addition to those present at the corners. So a centered unit cell is one. So unit cell means compulsory there will be 8 particles will be there at their corners. In addition to that, 1 or more particles are present. They may present at the center of the faces, they may present at the body center, they may present at the center of any 2 opposite faces. So such type of unit cells are called centered unit cell. So now once again, this centered unit cell has classified into 3 types. So centered unit cell has classified into 3 types. Types of centered unit cell. Types of centered unit cell. The first one is BCC, the name itself indicating body centered cubic unit cell. Body centered cubic unit cell. In short, it is called BCC. If you see the diagram, you will realize what it is actually. So let us see the diagram. if you draw only this much, it will be a simple cube. A simple cube is one in which particles are present only at the corners. But BCC is a centered unit cell. It means to say that in addition to those particles at the corners, we must have some additional particles. Let us see where it is. So one additional particle is present exactly at the body center. A particle is present at the body center, that's why it is called body centered cubic unit cell. So now what is BCC? So BCC is a unit cell. BCC unit cell contain, if we count, there are 8 corner particles. BCC unit cell contain 8 corner particles and one particle at its body center. So this is important one. In addition to those present at the corners, there is one extra particle which is present at its body center. So now total lattice points in BCC, total lattice points are, see, 8 particles at the corners, 1 at its body center, so that will be 9. So coming to second classification, FCC, so that is face centered cubic unit cell. Face centered cubic unit cell. So once again, soon as by looking into the diagram, you will come to know what it is. So let's have the diagram first. I already told you a unit cell has 6 faces. A unit cell has 6 faces. So now here the particles, if you draw only this much, it is a simple cube or primitive unit cell. So now let us see what is this FCC, face centered unit cell. You know there are 6 faces. Now the particles are present at the center of each face like this. Left face, upper face, right face, lower face. There is a front one at the center of front one, and there is a back side. So this is a back side face. So now where the particles are present now? 8 particles are present at the corners. In addition to that, 6 particles, means as there are 6 faces are there, so 6 particles are present at the face centers. So such a unit cell is called FCC. So now FCC has 8 corner particles, and one particle each at the center of each face. So totally how many lattice points are there? Total lattice points in FCC are, total lattice points are, see, 8 corner particles, 6 face center particles. So totally 8 plus 6, 14 lattice points are present. So this is the second unit cell or second classification of centered unit cell. Coming to third one, that is the last one, end centered unit cell. Third one, end centered unit cell. So now see the arrangement. You will be able to answer what is end-centered unit cell. So this is our primitive unit cell or simple cube. You already know that there are 8 corners. So the particles are present at the 8 corners like this. So this in this unit cell, so there will be one particle each at the center of any two opposite faces. कौन से? तो दो अपोजिट फेसेस के सेंटर में एक्स्ट्रा 2 पार्टिकल्स इसमें आती. सो देर आर 8 कॉर्नर पार्टिकल्स एंड 1 पार्टिकल ईच एट द सेंटर ऑफ any two opposite faces, at the center of any two opposite faces. So now end centered unit cell has 8 corner particles and 1 particle each at the center of any two opposite faces. So now you will be able to answer the total lattice points. So how many total lattice points are there in end-centered unit cell? So you can easily say, so the total lattice points are 10, 8 at the corners, 2 at the face centers. So the total lattice points will be